speed running my Senator Jeff Merkley's town hall from Portland, Oregon earlier today, part 2. If you want to go watch part 1, go for it. I'm going to try and wrap up the rest of the town hall in this video. So we do this ticket system here where constituents put their ticket in a hat. If your number gets pulled, you can ask the senator any question that you want. There are a couple of questions that got asked that I'm going to actually gloss over in this video because I don't think that they're particularly on topic. Both of those questions were about Falun Gong in China, asking for Senator Merkley's support for a bill that was previously sponsored by Marco Rubio and is now sponsored by Ted Cruz. I'm sorry. I want to dive into talking about the questions around ICE. One of the constituents stood up and said that they really cared about climate and environmental activism and that we can't solve our climate problems by creating sacrifice zones. But then they connected it to ICE and what's happening in Minneapolis. Minneapolis cannot be a sacrifice zone. My neighborhood is a sacrifice zone in many ways. These are areas where people in power have decided that, hey, this place can have higher levels of pollution, environmental hazards, environmental degradation, economic disinvestment, significant health risks for the population in the name of the greater good. And I just thought this was a really fascinating way to talk about what's happening in Minneapolis. We cannot treat our immigrants in Minneapolis as if they were living in a sacrifice zone. We cannot abandon the people of Minneapolis the way we abandon people and the environment in so many communities across the country and just be like, well, that's really polluted. Okay. Jeff thanked them for the question and the way that they tied it into climate change. Jeff has always been a really big climate activist. He also is really concerned about the ways, I am as well, that Oregon's forests are becoming hotter and drier. Our western red cedars are in big trouble in a lot of places. Jeff said he likes to talk about climate change in terms of what's happening right now, not what might happen 50 years from now, but how are we being negatively impacted right now? He said that we need strong leadership to tackle the climate crisis is the biggest task collectively we have as a human species, and we all need leadership on this, but the president and Congress, controlled by the Republicans, are not that leadership. Republicans deny that climate change is a problem, but they benefit from corporate pollution. They line their pockets with corporate pollution, with harming marginalized communities. Likewise, they are denying that Donald Trump is using ICE as a paramilitary force to inflict terror on American cities. But that is what is happening, and Republicans are benefiting from it, except that it's creating a backlash effect, and it's actually really hurting their numbers, which is why they're going to try and cheat even harder in the midterms, because the American people are really pissed off at what they're doing. A majority of Americans are opposed to what ICE is doing. So speaking of ICE, Ron did go on to say that we need to transition rapidly from a fossil fuel economy, which is dirty and expensive, to a renewable energy economy, which is clean and cheap. Donald Trump has canceled so much of Biden era funding that would have transitioned us more to wind and solar power. And guess what? China is coming in and other countries are coming in and filling the gap and fulfilling those contracts. And we are falling farther and farther behind. Trumpism is a reactionary movement. MAGA is a reactionary movement. They want to take us back to the past with what depleted coal resources, dirty, expensive fuel. Donald Trump loves that dark, dirty, industrial, robber baron, Gilded Age model. That's why he's always pushing coal, but doing nothing for actual coal miners in West Virginia to give them a quality of life. Could have transitioned them to renewables, could have helped move them into the future with more income, more stability, improved health outcomes, but he didn't, because he doesn't care. He doesn't care about any of us. Y'all in West Virginia, he doesn't care about you. Okay, so speaking of ICE, Jeff said the big ugly betrayal bill has sent $70 billion directly toward ICE. They're just handing out our taxpayer money, our hard-earned money. He said Congress that we have right now, this version of Congress, is not going to defund ICE. So we had better damn well have a different Congress really soon. Jeff doesn't want ICE funded. He doesn't want ICE to be able to do what they're doing in Minnesota. But I understand that he's pragmatic. The only tool that Democrats have is the 60 votes where they could block funding. And it looks like Democratic leadership, Chuck Schumer's not going to do that. Cory Booker's not going to do that. I'll talk about that later. Alyssa Slotkin's not going to do that. So I know that there are Democrats in the Senate who want to go along with the progressive Democrats in the House, but I don't think that they have the votes. And definitely no Republicans are going to obstruct what ICE is doing. Jeff did say there was a little bit of a positive sign, and there actually are fractures in the Republican cohort in both the House and the Senate. He said there is a little bit of a positive sign in that the Homeland Security bill was detached from other bills in these upcoming spending packages, so it will be considered separately. He said it's still a really big problem because they've moved FEMA into DHS, so it's DHS funding It's going to be a really bad move politically for members of Congress to vote against disaster relief funding, even though Donald Trump is denying cities and states around the country disaster relief money, and he wants to dismantle FEMA altogether. He did say there's a little bit of bipartisan pressure, but I'm expecting at the end we will not see ICE defunded as long as you have this current leadership in the House and the Senate. He then went on to ask people if they had seen the footage of Renee Good being slaughtered. He used the term slaughtered. I think it's something like 85+% of adult Americans have seen that footage. He said it was so stunning. And then right after he had seen it, he got word about the 2 shootings of Luis and Yorlenis here in Portland. That happened very close to where I live, and it happened very close to where Jeff lives. We're basically neighbors. He doesn't live very far from me at all. So this rolled into the next question from Erin, who said that she's a mom, a business owner, and an architect. She said, what can you do to stop ICE and to release the Epstein files? Can you filibuster the Homeland Security Appropriations bill? What can you do to defund ICE, or at least stop the ICE bump that is going to occur thanks to the big bloated betrayal bill? How can you move it back to the enormous amount of $10 million? It was $10 million under Joe Biden. And thanks to the Republicans, it's been bumped up to $37.5 billion. She also thanked Jeff for consistently speaking up on Gaza. She said Trump is all over the world everywhere, treating everyone like they're disposable, treating the people of Gaza like they're disposable, treating the people of Minneapolis like they're disposable, and next it will be Portland and wherever else he wants to go. Jeff said, thank you for bringing up Gaza. If you don't know, Jeff went there twice last year. I'm just going to read this part. He said, I tried to get into Rafah. They wouldn't let me. Where I had seen 1 million people a year before, I could stand and look into Rafah and just see rubble. Everything blown up to make it impossible for people to return. It's been an affliction on the people of the Middle East. He's advocated for a Palestinian state in the very near future. And he pivoted to talking about the Epstein files and said, we have to make sure that the law is enforced and the Epstein files are released. I love the way that constituents ask these questions and Jeff answers them in a way that helps us all understand all of these issues are connected. They're all connected. Jeff brought up the fact that only 1% of the Epstein files have been released. 1%. Pam Bondi is obstructing, Donald Trump is obstructing the release of 99% of the Epstein files. He then went on to talk about the work that Ron Wyden has done for the last almost 4 years, collecting information about Jeffrey Epstein's financial transactions. All of that resides with the Treasury Department. He's been trying for, I think, the last 8-9 months to get Pam Bondi to investigate that. She's not going to do anything with it, but Jeff is right. Ron has created $1.7 billion worth of financial leads that need to be investigated in this process of getting justice. So it's the Epstein files, and then it's all of the Epstein transactions in the Treasury Department that Pam Bondi is not letting be released. Jeff did say that Democrats have this 60 vote threshold, and they could hold the line, but that the Homeland Security bill is likely to be nested inside another bill, and it will be complicated. It will be complicated to get anybody to obstruct that vote going through. He said he would love to send a message to the president that Congress is willing to once again reclaim the power of the purse. So the questions kept pouring in from constituents. What can Congress, Democrats in Congress in particular, do to check Trump's powers? What can Democrats do to block ICE funding? And Jeff was really honest in a way that I think upset people, but was pretty factual. He said there really are only 2 powers available to us right now: citizen protest, the power of the people, and then maximum use within the legislature as the minority power to try to do whatever they can. But that so much of this relies on the next election. So much of this relies on those who care about justice and are not collaborators with fascism regaining the majority. And I know that that doesn't feel great for a number of reasons, because a lot of it rests on our shoulders through actions that are risky for us, that involve significant personal risk and sacrifice, but also because we know that Democratic leadership in Congress is just failing to meet the moment. So it's hard for us to trust. We have to vote for folks who are not literal fascists, but then will those folks get justice for us? I trust that Jeff and Ron will, absolutely. Not Chuck Schumer, though, no. There are 3 other questions that got asked that I want to cover separately. They each deserve their own video and more of a deep dive. But Jeff concluded here by saying that we have to summon the energy and the anger. We have to have willingness to get off the couch, to fiercely hold our electeds accountable. We also should all be joining affinity groups. He said, it's not good to be frustrated alone. You just become angry and depressed. We need to be frustrated in a group so that we become energized and take action. That's right. We have to come together. We have to get rowdy now.